Test, test. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as the joint commissioning ceremony will begin in 3 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the entrance of the stage party and remain standing for the playing of the national anthem and the invocation.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we humbly approach you to make our prayer on behalf of these candidates who are being commissioned in the armed forces of our nation. Men and women who have volunteered to serve in our country's military will be entrusted into their care. As these candidates set their will to fulfill the oath, which will become their professional creed, give of your Holy Spirit that enabling power that will make their word their bond. Equip them with your grace till they're filled with compassion, courage, wisdom, and a sense of excellence. Create in them a dedication to duty. Foster in them a love for country. Cause them to regard honor above self. Empower them to choose and hold to the harder right rather than the easier wrong. You placed into the care of our nation the guardianship of freedom. VMI cadets who in years past were commissioned at this ceremony are presently performing this duty. Those being commissioned today will soon take up arms and join them in this calling. Surround them and those they will lead with your abundant protection, and in times of peace and war, hear and answer their cry to thee. Be for them an ever-present help in the time of trouble. We commend them into your faithful, all-sufficient care. This, O God, is our prayer. God, bless America. Amen.
Please be seated. Good morning. On behalf of the VMI Board of Visitors and the entire VMI community, it gives me great pleasure to welcome those who will soon receive commissions, their proud families and friends, members of the VMI faculty, staff, and members of the Corps of Cadets. Today's ceremony marks the culmination of 4 years of serious study and work on the part of each of our graduates and the beginning of a life of service to the nation. It's a tradition that goes way back to the founding of the Republic. Of the important moments that will remain in your memories throughout life, certainly, I think this ceremony will be one. This commissioning ceremony marks the transition of young men and women from the life of a cadet and student to that of an officer in the armed forces of the United States of America. It is the fulfillment of one of the central and historic purposes of the Virginia Military Institute: preparation of citizen soldiers for the nation. We're most fortunate to have with us today as commissioning officers 4 outstanding officers whose service to the nation stands as an inspiration to all of us and especially the young men and women who will follow in their paths from this day forward. It is my honor to welcome Army General Daniel Allyn, a 1981 U.S. Military Academy graduate who is the 35th Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army. Navy Rear Admiral James W. Kilby, a 1986 graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, who is commander of the Navy Naval Surface Warfighting Development Center. U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant General Ronald L. Bailey, a 1977 graduate of Austin Peay State University, who is Deputy Commandant for Plans, Policies, and Operations. And Air Force General Darren W. McDew, a 1982 VMI graduate, who is commander of the Air Force Air Mobility Command. And with the wartime demands of duty and responsibility that these officers have faced, VMI is privileged to welcome these 4 senior officers to deliver the commissioning oath to soon-to-be officers of all of our 4 services. I also extend a warm welcome to Lieutenant Commander Paul Jenkins, U.S. Navy Reserve, retired, Director of Operations of the Virginia Women's Institute for Leadership, VWIL, at Mary Baldwin College. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the founding of VWIL by the Commonwealth of Virginia and the beginning of its association with VMI and their cadets who will commission in one of the services today. As we welcome these distinguished officers from the separate branches of our armed forces, it is important to emphasize the accomplishments and personal characteristics that bind them together. All 4 are seasoned officers who have served at the highest echelons of our national command structure, as well as having extensive experience in leading soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines at the cutting edge of our business. We're honored by their presence today, and let's give them an applause and appreciation for their distinctive service. Before continuing, I invite our professors of military science and their staffs to stand and receive our expression of thanks for the inspiring work that they have accomplished in teaching and mentoring the young men and women who will be commissioned this morning. Please stand. And now I ask that all of the veterans in the audience stand. Cadets, staff, faculty, parents, and other guests here today to receive our heartfelt thanks for your service. Members of the class of 2015, in a few moments, you will hear from your commissioning officer and take the solemn oath of commissioning. As you perform your new duties in your respective services, I know that their words will often come back to you and serve as guides. I encourage you strongly to frame and keep your commission on display and read it with regularity. I think it will guide you through the challenging profession that you have chosen. Today is the 151st anniversary of the Battle of Newmarket, in which the Corps of Cadets distinguished itself. It is also the 101st anniversary of the beginning of what has been called the Great War, the First World War, in which over 1,800 VMI alumni served. That war was also known as the War to End All Wars. But sadly, that has not been the case. Despite the hope of permanent peace, 75 years ago, the world plunged into the Second World War. And modern history has shown the continuing and increasing need for a strong military establishment led by highly educated, skilled, and dedicated officers. VMI is proud to play a role in the defense of our nation, and VMI is very proud of its sons and daughters who accept the responsibilities and duties as officers in the armed forces. VMI is proud of you. Weapons and systems are important, vital to accomplishment of missions and objectives. However, the key to the strength of any nation's military establishment is its men and women who operate these tools of warfare on the ground, on and under the sea, in the air and space, and now in cyberspace. The level of professionalism, skill, and intelligence required of those who wear the uniform, in my view, has never been higher in our nation's history. And this level continues to rise and rise exponentially. As never before, knowledge is power, and that applies especially to warfare. Your 4 years at the Institute has laid a foundation for you, but requirements that you continue to learn doesn't stop here. That certainly holds true for the military. The world is changing rapidly and is clearly becoming a much more dangerous place. This condition demands flexibility, competence, judgment, the very best of leadership by its officers, skills that I feel certain that you have developed over the course of your 4 years of study and development at the Institute. Tomorrow, you will become VMI graduates, and I can say without hesitation that you can be confident that you are prepared for the challenges and adventures that await you. I congratulate you on the attainment of a commission. The Institute could not be more proud. Your families are proud of you, and you can take just pride yourself in your accomplishments. Our country is fortunate with your decision to serve and to lead. Good luck to each of you in the years ahead. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege to introduce today's U.S. Army Commissioning Officer, General Daniel B. Allyn. General Allyn is a native of Berwick, Maine, and is a graduate of the United States Military Academy. He has commanded at all levels of our Army from platoon to corps and filled staff assignments at the battalion through the Joint Staff. He has served in a wide variety of military, interagency, and intergovernmental missions in Korea, Grenada, the Sinai Peninsula, Panama, Saudi Arabia, Haiti, Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan. General Allyn is most proud of his family, his wife Debbie, and 2 grown children, Josh and Danielle, who recently graduated from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, the 35th Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, General Daniel B. Allyn.
Well, thanks for that, Doug, and for taking the instruction from the tower about being brief. I appreciate that. Good morning, General Peay, and thank you for inviting me and for your great remarks and charge to these great servant leaders who are about to begin this incredible journey. Welcome to the Honorable John Marsh, Jr., former Secretary of the Army, fellow general officers, faculty, family, friends, and most importantly, soon-to-be officers and graduates of the Virginia Military Institute. Congratulations to all of you on reaching this very special day, and thank you for choosing to serve. All here today know that May 15th is the date of the heroic effort of VMI cadets at the Battle of Newmarket during the Civil War. The spirit of the cadets that won the day in 1864 clearly lives on in this formation, represented in the resiliency you demonstrated during the Snow-X in late April, during your spring FTX, represented in Captain Sight's notorious knife hands instructional tactics, and in your fearless leaders' PT sessions, complete with pro mask and body armor. Seriously though, the warrior ethos embodied in this great military institution remains essential to securing our nation today and into the future. I attribute our global success over the last 239 years of the Army's existence to the unwavering standards to which we hold leaders in our profession and the indomitable fighting spirit of the American soldier. You are now charged to lead our nation's premier weapon system, the United States soldier, through the next phase of our nation's historic journey. You enter the Army at a historic and increasingly dangerous time. And as George C. Marshall, one of our nation's greatest soldiers and a VMI graduate, once said, and I quote, "If man does find the solution for world peace, it will be the most revolutionary reversal of his record ever known," end of quote. We are globally engaged with soldiers serving forward in 151 nations as I stand here today. We are at war with an enemy as evil as any in our history, intent on attacking our nation and our families, and it is our great joint force that will ultimately hold them to account. I wish to impart on you today 2 simple lessons from my 3.5 decades of service in our great Army. First, taking care of soldiers is our #1 responsibility, and the best way we care for soldiers is to ensure their readiness, built through challenging training and high standards of discipline. In the words of General and President Dwight D. Eisenhower, history does not entrust the care of freedom to the weak or timid. Second, what our nation needs above all is leaders of character who thrive in a complex world. Your character will be tested, and it will be the most important test that you face. And your soldiers will follow you anywhere if they trust you. And you will earn their trust day in and day out by consistently choosing the harder right over the easier wrong, by standing your ground in the face of adversity. Yes, being a leader of character carries with it the toughest duty description on the planet, and also the richest of all rewards, the trust, respect, and love of the soldiers you are blessed to serve and to lead. Today, you begin a journey that will take you places you cannot begin to imagine. That, I promise you. Look to your left and right. These are your brothers and sisters for life. You have suffered and sacrificed together. You have succeeded and failed together. You have celebrated and no doubt cried together. Hold each other accountable. And true to the values and spirit of this institution and of our great profession, thank you for allowing me to share this milestone with you. The eagerness I see in your faces both motivates and inspires me. Good luck, God bless you, and Army strong.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor today to introduce Lieutenant General Bailey. Lieutenant General Bailey is a graduate of Austin Peay State University and the National War College. He served in all 3 active Marine divisions and has commanded at all levels, specifically 2nd Line Armored Reconnaissance Battalion, 2nd Marine Regiment, 3rd Marine Expeditionary Brigade, as the commanding general of the Blue Diamond, the 1st Marine Division. The general is currently assigned as a Deputy Commandant, Plans, Policy, and Operations, and Marine Corps. Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant General Bailey.
Thank you very much for the introduction, General Peay. It is distinguished general officers on the dais, to our family and friends, and of course to the graduates. It's indeed an honor to have this special moment to be here with you this morning. Entwined in the history of our nation is the storied legacy of our military. Iron will and discipline have earned us a reputation that's really second to none. I'm going to tell you, you probably don't remember jack about this ceremony, other than you took an oath, and there was a couple of generals standing before you and they said a few things. So I'm going to tell a few stories, and maybe you'll remember these stories as lessons learned that you'll carry with you. I'm going to ask you to travel on 3 ships with me: the ship of leadership, ownership, and mentorship. Leadership's about influence and relationships. The influence you have on those who work around you, the influence that you'll have on your organization, the influence that you'll have in any environment in which you're assigned. And so that challenge for you will be to always be the role model and example. Ownership. You take full responsibility for everything, 100% responsibility. And I'll give you an equation. E plus R equals O. The event is the event that you're involved in. The response is your response, which leads to an outcome. And so when you take full responsibility for everything that you do and everything about you, then you will have an effect on the outcome. Mentorship. Mentorship is about service. Your service to this nation, your service to each other, and remember that you're a role model and that we're watching and many others are watching you. And so be a very good role model. And with that I say, as a leader, as an owner, as a mentor, think good thoughts because they become good words. Good words become good actions. Good actions become good habits, and good habits become a part of your character. And so with that, I would charge you to remember it's very, very important that you stay on the mission and never quit. So when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, the funds are low and the debts are high, when you want to smile but you have to sigh. When care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but never quit. We don't understand it, we don't believe it, and so lead your men and women to success day in and day out through your leadership, and you taking responsibility for who you are, and what you represent. And with that I say to you, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Hoorah!
Ladies and gentlemen, it is again my distinct privilege to introduce Rear Admiral Kilby. He's a graduate of the United States Naval Academy and the Naval Postgraduate School. He's commanded ships at sea, including the guided missile destroyer, the USS Russell, and the guided missile cruiser, the USS Monterey. He's a recipient of the Vice Admiral James B. Stockdale Inspirational Leadership Award, a husband, and a father. The Admiral is currently assigned as the Commander, Naval Surface and Mine Warfare Development Center in San Diego, California. Ladies and gentlemen, Rear Admiral Kilby.
Well, good morning. General Peay, generals, guests, family, friends, and most importantly, soon-to-be graduates of VMI, it is my distinct honor to be here with you today. Today, I want to speak with you regarding the significance of the voluntary section of your oath. I think it very appropriate to begin with a quote from General Stonewall Jackson. He said, "The patriot volunteer fighting for country and his rights makes the most reliable soldier on earth." I could not agree more. In preparation for today's ceremony, I read an editorial from a former U.S. serviceman named Benjamin Luxembourg. He was in synagogue one day, and an older woman approached him and asked him in Hebrew a question which he was unable to answer. She then asked him in English, "How did you serve in the Israeli Defense Force without being able to speak Hebrew?" And he responded, "I served in the United States Marine Corps." She walked away perplexed because Mr. Luxembourg's choice did not fit her assumption. Mr. Luxembourg uses the rest of the editorial to explain his choice, his desire to serve Marines and to serve our country, which supports freedom of thought and religion, and an extremely diverse population. He closes by stating he has no regrets on his decision to volunteer and serve the Constitution of the United States because of the inclusiveness that goes with the American ideals. Ben Luxembourg exercised his choice. I commend this editorial to you and encourage today's graduates to reflect on the values of our nation, which you have volunteered to defend. So several years ago, you volunteered when our country was heavily involved in conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan. You made a choice. 10 months ago, another set of volunteers made a choice, the George Herbert Walker Bush Strike Group. They executed 3 weeks of short-notice strikes and air support against ISIS insurgents until other forces could be deployed to join them. This is one of the key attributes of our Navy. Roughly 50% of the Navy is deployed at any given time. We are first responders. The Navy and Marine Corps enjoy this natural synergy with our other services. Since World War I, our country has played an increasing role as a global power. In 1973, the Secretary of Defense made a decision to go to an all-volunteer force. These forces helped win the Cold War. They came to fruition in the early 1990s with the Persian Gulf conflict. And most recently, in response to 9/11, have served most admirably in Iraq and Afghanistan. They are the envy of the world in skill, aptitude, and execution. Looking to the future, the United States has signaled a rebalance to the Pacific, where 60% of our forces will be deployed in that AOR by 2019. The vast amount of ocean in the Pacific dictates the Navy will be deeply involved in this strategy. This means you will be deeply involved in this strategy. The challenge for all of you is to lead your future soldiers, sailors, and airmen who are a sampling of this great nation. They want to be led. The Navy core values of honor, courage, and commitment serve as key navigational aids for you as you begin your voyage as a commissioned officer. Use these core values as guideposts for your actions and behavior. Embrace them. Reflect upon them, not only in times of challenges, but at all times, so they remain fresh and provide you a constant reminder of how to lead your personnel. I wish you the best as you begin your respective careers. All cadets commissioning as ensigns in the United States Navy, stand and raise your right hand.
Good morning. General Darren W. McDew is Commander, Air Mobility Command, Scott Air Force Base, Illinois. AMC's mission is to provide, ladies and gentlemen, the senior ranking VMI active duty graduate, General Darren McDew.
What good is it to have home court advantage if you can't do that? Raw Virginia Mill. I am about to lose my mind right now. Because about 150 years ago, I sat where you're sitting. Looking at some of your faces, it was probably about 200 years ago. I will apologize right up front for whatever I failed to say or whatever I will say today, because it is filled with the emotion of the day. The VMI class of 1982 was the first to graduate in this awesome place. So I literally sat here 33 years ago. Before I forget, General Peay, thank you very much for not only this ceremony inviting me back, but for your constant mentoring over the years and the lessons you continue to give me about patience. Thank you very, very much. He told me once when I was a young two-star that I ought to be patient. If he hadn't told me that, I wouldn't be an old four-star today. Secretary Marsh, it is great to see you again. I remember as a cadet, you were on the VMI Board of Visitors when I was a cadet, and it was announced that you would become secretary while I was a cadet here, and I will never forget that day. Sir, thank you very much for coming back and being here. I want to thank all of you for being here and thanking these great men and women on this great and glorious day. Yesterday, you were cadets, shining representatives of this magnificent institution. Today, you're brimming with unlimited potential and unmatched promise. You're transforming right before my eyes into the next generation of today's military leaders. It's an exciting moment, and I'm immensely proud of you. I hope you can feel it. To all the parents, family members, friends that are out there today, thank you. It's easy to spot you in the crowd. You have the biggest and brightest smiles in the room. You have made this day possible through your love and encouragement. They will continue to need that love and encouragement in the years that come. We celebrate these young leaders because you cared enough to give them the importance of giving back to their nation. We will do our best to give them everything they need to make them successful. And on behalf of a commander-in-chief and a grateful nation, thank you for letting us borrow them for a couple decades. Or more. To the class of 2015. I never thought I would actually say that out of my mouth, 2015. Today, you commit to a profession that is far more than a job. It's a higher calling. You could be successful anywhere, but each of you have chosen to serve. You mark that commitment by taking an oath that binds each of us together as military professionals. The final section of the oath states that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me, God. So help me, God. The gold bars you receive will symbolize your obligation to duty. What does duty really mean? It means, as every other speaker on the dais has said today, leading in some of the most dangerous and challenging environments on the earth. It means putting your life in the hands of your fellow soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and accepting that you're responsible for theirs. Duty, it means the last full measure of devotion. Since 2001, 13 VMI graduates have made the ultimate sacrifice in the performance of that duty. General Patton once said, VMI class of 07, all men are afraid in battle. The cowards are the ones who let their fear overcome their sense of duty. Duty is resolve. You've watched it every day coming in and out of Jackson Arch. You may be whatever you resolve to be. Our core values are the bedrock of our profession. It is anchored in the fixity of the noble purpose as the guardians of the strongest nation on the planet. Duty is leadership, pure and simple. Doing one's duty is not easy, but I have great confidence in you. For nearly 176 years, VMI has produced leaders of the highest character, and now you continue that legacy. You have emerged from an intense, structured program that you're now going to call home, that once you never thought you would. You today are worried about whether or not it's okay to leave home, although you want to. You'll be just fine. You'll come back. You're already leaders. Today. Immediately, thousands upon thousands of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines will look to you to bring clarity in crisis. Do not shirk from that responsibility. Your responsibility is to be ready when the crisis occurs, to learn your profession. It is no longer something that you can memorize, test, and forget. It is now something you must internalize and remain accountable for doing. I wish you could see yourselves through my eyes right now. I like what I see. You are my heroes. You are the reason I continue to serve. I congratulate you and thank you for accepting this sacred duty. I also thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. It means a lot to an old airman to watch you take on the mantle. Robert Virginia Mill.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in showing our appreciation as we recognize our military's newly commissioned officers with a round of applause. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the playing of the Armed Forces Medley and remain standing while the stage party departs.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the joint ceremony. Please join us at the individual ROTC pin-on ceremonies. The Army will be located in the Center for Leadership and Ethics, the Navy and Marine Corps in front of Jackson Arch, and the Air Force will be located in the Memorial Garden.